Rain is a prince of Edenia, a demigod, and a traitor, originally offering his allegiance to Shao Kahn rather than suffer at the hands of Kahn's extermination squads. Although his plot has taken a couple of turns across the years, Rain has maintained a common theme in Mortal Kombat, and that is selfishness. A direct descendant of royal Edenian blood, Rain has often stopped at nothing to realize his own power above all else. This general story takes multiple forms across the various games he's featured in, and this video is to highlight the higher level gameplay side of one of Mortal Kombat's most demanded characters and beloved combatants. He's also among my favourite Mortal Kombat characters of all time, and I've played him for many years, growing an appreciation for his truly unique moveset, and I know I'm not alone as a major fan of the character design. Join me as I take you through the high-level journey of one of Mortal Kombat's most unique combatants, Rain.
My intentions are to teach you the difference between pretension and godhood.
Rain would be first seen, but not playable. This lies in the arcade attract mode of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. The attract mode essentially being the little movie that plays if no credits are in the machine to show the game off and make it look good, to attract players to come and play it. For a split second, Rain is seen on the UMK3 specific portal stage, fighting Shao Kahn. Obviously, this back in the day would create a lot of mystery and players trying to find or unlock him, as Mortal Kombat has always been famous for its secrets. But this one would forever be a wild goose chase. He was not playable, nor would you ever encounter him. This would change with the 16-bit ports of Ultimate MK3 that appeared on home systems, most notably Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. This was the first time that Rain was a fully playable character and introduced his moveset for all to see. This is the introduction to what would become Rain's staple specials and signature attacks for years to come. Weather Ball fires like any projectile and can control the opponent's movement on hit, setting up for combos. Lightning Bolt, summon a single lightning bolt to pop up the opponent for a full combo. Super Kick is a simple roundhouse input, back and high kick. With Rain, the roundhouse sends the opponent across the screen and appears on the other side, once again allowing for combos. His two combo strings were a simple punch string, like so, and more importantly, a low crushing kick string to launch the opponent with the roundhouse ender. In 16-bit Ultimate MK3, Rain's combo ability was pretty straightforward. Using roundhouse after his kick string would send the opponent away, and that's it. There were no extra combos here. All in all, 16-bit Rain really wasn't much to write home about. He was sometimes considered okay, because he had a launching low crush and he had some pretty okay moves by themselves, but with the parts of the world that did play Ultimate MK3 on Super Nintendo competitively, mostly South America, I've been told outright that they don't really consider him to be a very strong character. SNES UMK3 is famous for giving a lot of characters way bigger combo potential than they had in the arcade version, and Rain didn't have that, so you have supercharged other characters versus a standard Rain by himself. Now then, Rain would next be playable in Mortal Kombat Trilogy. This version keeps all of his moves from the 16-bit console days, but visually, he looks far more impressive thanks to the next generation systems at the time. Most people would just assume that's the end of it, as his moves are the same, so how could he possibly be different? Mechanically, Rain wouldn't be exactly the same. This lies in his combo potential that utilizes a few high-level tricks that were a potential oversight when bringing Rain into a more advanced system. Remember those simple combos I talked about in the 16-bit Rain? Well, that's not the case here. In classic Mortal Kombat, most prominently the days of MK3 and UMK3, players can use another button after a high punch or low punch to cancel out some of the recovery frames. This technique lets players perform certain juggles that are impossible without it. Rain takes full advantage of this after a roundhouse, and by performing a high punch cancel into walk forward roundhouse repeatedly, Roundhouse will infinite into a guaranteed big damage combo. It's not easy by any means on some versions of Trilogy, but the fact is, this is a lethal move to get hit by, and it made him very dangerous. There is no off-screen roundhouse limit like there seemingly was in his very first version of SNES UMK3. Additionally, the weather ball could be comboed into more than once if it connected within the first 4 hits or so of the combo in question, cashing out more damage before the roundhouse juggles that, understandably, come after it. Trilogy Rain was scary. Combine lots of launching potential with the insane damage the roundhouse loops bring to the table, and he's an intimidating character to go up against. Worth mentioning that N64 and PlayStation Trilogy are very different games mechanically, with Rain even looking visually different in both versions. PlayStation Rain has the scorpion-style pose, with N64 featuring a reptile-like pose, but his moves functioned very similarly, with both versions featuring the infinites, big combos, and excessive juggles. For anybody interested in those differences, I have an entire MK meta video about Trilogy, and I cover at length why the two versions were so different. I'll link it in the description. After Trilogy, many Mortal Kombat games would come and go. The franchise took different turns and, at this stage, became 3D, and it would be many years before we would ever see Rain again. In Mortal Kombat Armageddon, Rain makes a return. He has a larger bearing on Armageddon's story, ambushing Taven, the game's main protagonist, and half-brother of Rain in a bid to prevent Taven and Dagon's quest from completing, thus allowing him to conquer the final battle of Armageddon all by himself. Now, assumingly there may have been some time limitations or perhaps some restrictions on the 3D engine due to the complexity of Rain's original move list, some of his iconic specials were not present in his 3D appearance, most notably the Weather Ball and its movement control mechanic, and the Super Kick. I do only assume here, as I can't imagine how the roundhouse would even work in a 3D space, if at all. His two most famous attacks took a step back and introduced alternative moves that would leave Rain feeling a little more basic, but entirely focusing on his ability to control elements of the weather, mainly in water and lightning. The first special to be introduced in Armageddon was the Teleport, otherwise known as Mystic Vapors. Rain will simply disappear and reappear behind the opponent. It's one of the fastest teleports in the entire game, and due to the opponent having to turn around to face him, it's one of the stronger mobility teleports due to the speed. He's able to easily get himself out of an unfavorable position or set up for something else. Windy Feet is a straightforward charge attack. Very unsafe on block, but it covers a decent distance and is very fast on startup. Not something you'd use all the time, but can cause death traps and catch people off guard thanks to the speed alone. Water Blast is the projectile in this game, and it sucks. It's slow, easy to sidestep, and doesn't do much damage, so it's not worth ending combos in either. Overall, this is a move that looks cool, but you'd never really use it against a human opponent because it's so easy to punish and work around. Lastly, Rain's strongest move, and the one attack that returns in all of its glory, Shocking Bolt. This bolt of lightning once again launches the opponent, but in Armageddon, it's fully unblockable. The slower startup in this compared to his other appearances with this move means that a skilled player can react to the startup and simply sidestep or jump. But the fact is, this move is always a threat, and the opponent is always on their toes. It's by far his strongest attack in this game, and I'll explain why in a minute. Outside of specials, Rain's hand-to-hand stance was Z-Ran Men. It was basically just like every other simple hand-to-hand stance in the game. He didn't have many attacks in hand-to-hand, and a lot of the stances in Armageddon suffered from poor frame data, and making the player focus on a handful of decent moves, in some cases building entire playstyles around just one, maybe two strings or buttons. 113 launched for a combo, but wasn't too good on block. 2 forward 2 weapon was a better launcher thanks to the speed and faster recovery. 113 could be used to end combos instead. Back 3 forward 3 hits twice as a low, but again, crazy unsafe. Outside of that, it was simple low pokes. His 2 low kicks in down 3 and down 4 were the low options, particularly down 4, as it has range and advances. Rain's weapon, the Storm Sword, once again featured some combo strings that varied in hits and some pokes, but his sword stance was also pretty unsafe across the board. But if you're bombarding the opponent with lows, he did have back 1, which functioned as a mid-launcher to catch them. Back 2 also launched and sported far better recovery, making it better for launchers mid-combo if you connected Lightning Bolt. The 2 3-hit strings in this stance in 4-4-4 and 2-2-1 were both unsafe and didn't really offer mix-up. You'd think you can end combos in them, but hand-to-hands 1-1-3 would often result in the same damage, and it would give you hand-to-hand afterwards, which was generally a bit faster, and otherwise seen as the superior stance of the 2. Rain was a character that only expanded in depth depending on the general rule set of the 2 players going head-to-head. Armageddon is infamous for air combat infinites and crazy juggles, but that's only possible if the 2 players allow it. Most of the time, infinites are banned outright, but 1 or 2 reps of the air cancels are considered to be okay. Rain needs at least 1 rep of air cancels to have any combo variety at all. Without it, it's just a string into another string. That's the combo. Not very exciting. But with cancels, Rain's many launchers combined with the unblockable lightning bolt just transformed his damage potential significantly. Fundamentally, Rain wasn't really written home about. Like most Armageddon characters, he had some stuff, but it generally didn't compete with the bloated, out-of-this-world tools the top tiers had access to. Rain's greatest moves were Teleport, Lightning Bolt, and his hand-to-hand 2-forward-2 weapon string. You would look at these moves as your foundations and constantly fish for air cancel damage once a launcher was obtained. Besides that, his hand-to-hand low kicks were annoying to deal with because they were fast and had good range, but at the end of the day, this pretty much was Armageddon Rain in a nutshell. He's fun to play if people get hit by lightning, but once they start dodging it, you feel incredibly limited. This character lived and died by whatever community rules were in place. If nothing was in place, great, just hit an unblockable lightning and infinite them until the end. If there are community rules, he has limited combos, and if they dodge lightning, he hasn't got much to offer. Mortal Kombat 9, the big competitive debut of Mortal Kombat as a franchise with new mechanics, more emphasis on depth. This game had so much that got us all hungry for how far we could take the characters mechanically. Although not in the base roster, Rain returned as one of the game's downloadable fighters and, in my opinion, which, don't worry, I won't make this an opinion piece, was one of the game's most underrated characters. The main thing that held the character back was the game's subpar netcode, which I'll explain soon. As a basic overview, all of his classic specials return. Lightning launches again, Weather Ball once again controls where the opponent goes, and Super Kick will send the opponent to the other side of the screen. But Rain had some extra additions, somewhat combining his Armageddon moves and his classic moves together, with some new stuff too. Teleport comes back, the enhanced version attacking on the other side. This can also be done in the air. The Aqua Jet of Water also returns, but this time it's much smaller and it acts as both a combo ender and a restand. 2 brand new specials debut for Rain. The H2O Boost, which disables blocking for you but grants a damage boost for a short time. Enhanced version of this amplifies the damage further. Finally, the GEYSER Kick, which is especially useful in corner combos for massive damage. X-Rays made their debut in MK9, with Rains functioning as a high damage way to set up super kick combos. Although combos after X-Ray were limited by design for this character, Weather Ball and Lightning will not juggle after an X-Ray, and assumingly it was to avoid the crazy damage that would come from it. Rain certainly didn't lack in the damage department. Like the other games, his moveset allows for a bunch of high damaging launcher combos. He had some pretty cool combo strings as well, like 3-3-4, 1-2 forward 4, back 2-3, back to 1+2, but the fact of the matter is, Rain was all about combos, and his main buttons for those combos outside of special moves were standing 4 and 4-3. Rain's Weather Ball, Lightning, and Super Kick worked in harmony with one another. The ideal Rain combo involves all 3 of these if you can, but at the very least, every combo should be using Weather Ball and Lightning, as Weather Ball sets them up really high for easy extensions, and Lightning will always launch the same way, regardless of combo gravity. A simple Rain combo, which is as effortless as it gets, uses just 4-3 and 3 combo specials. This combo right here does 34% and I didn't even have to try. The thing is, this video covers a higher level of these characters, and a skilled Rain player wasn't doing combos like these. They would do combos like these. If you had the execution to pull off combos that involve dash-in uppercuts, Rain's damage potential exploded. The corner combos aren't even that difficult. The GEYSER kick is the skeleton key for that damage, but mid-screen, the forward dash uppercut combos were notoriously tricky. You had to do standing 4 roundhouse into a very precisely timed forward dash and an uppercut, making sure they just fly enough over your head to dash in forward 3, which was another crazy tight link. But at competitive level, these combos could be learned with enough practice, which turns Rain into a character that off most hits is dealing at least 40% damage, 50% if you're in the corner. The key factor to this damage is that all of it is meterless, which brings me as to why not having to spend meter on combos this damaging is so important for Rain in general. First of all, he's one of the only characters in the roster that can drain your super meter. By connecting an enhanced Weather Ball, the opponent loses a bar of their meter, essentially spending a bar yourself so they lose one too. Often, the Weather Ball connects at the start of combos, or just about. Seeing as your combo doesn't cost any meter, you would often spend 1 bar to make sure they can't break the 45 to 50% that's incoming. When Rain hits you, there's a good chance it's damage you can't stop. Secondly, his super kick can be cancelled, introducing cancel pressure. Many cancels aren't plus on block, but the super kick on block is only -3, so completely safe. It's the threat that Rain can pull the trigger on a super kick right as you try and interrupt. If he does and you get hit, incoming massive damage on top of meter drain into teleport into pressure. The additional layer to super kick is the enhanced version of it has armor on startup. But as it can be cancelled, Rain can start the special, absorb hits with the armor, and cancel out of it for a full combo, another character that has what we call a flash parry. So, with all these things going on, why was he not considered a crazy strong character? Meter drain, insane damage, cancels that if the opponent flinches cost them half life? Honestly, it's because almost all players in the game's prime only played online. It was all a lot of us had back then. Massive input delay meant that the optimized Rain combos that could delete a player became borderline impossible to perform if you were playing online. They're so reactionary that muscle memory alone will not allow his higher damage to come through consistently, and the character didn't have much offline representation at all, as offline MK9 players at the time definitely favored the lower maintenance already established god tier characters, which does make total sense, people were playing to win, but it left Rain as a character that, in my opinion, was never really given the time of day he deserved. There's a lot going on for this character, and it's a shame that online hindered him as much as it did. But I don't invent history, it is what it is, and during the game's prime, Rain was not on many players' radar. I still, to this day, will consider him one of competitive MK's biggest hidden gems.
Rain wins.
That marks all official MK titles with Rain in the main roster, but there's a couple of smaller things left to go over that is still worth showing to complete the Rain package. Rain is seen and played against in the Mortal Kombat X story mode. He's an NPC character, which means we can't control him, unless of course you have the PC version and use a simple offline mod to try him out in training mode. Just for fun, I did that, so let's check him out. There isn't a huge amount to go over as far as normals and strings go. He very much just has his MK9 buttons. A couple of inputs might be a little different, but at its core, he is MK9 Rain in Mortal Kombat X. Only in this game, he of course has a sprint, just like the rest of the cast. The big thing about Rain here is that even though he's never intended to be a playable character, you can still do some pretty cool combos with him. His launching properties are still there, but a lot of his attacks use a lot more gravity than you'd expect. So these crazy long juggles don't quite exist anymore. Although in these MKX style Rain combos, you can still see the remnants of what made his MK9 stuff work. He doesn't have H2O boost or the Aqua Jet, but he keeps the teleport, super kick, geyser kick, weather ball, and lightning. Quite a few moves to keep for an NPC, right? All complete with meter burn too, mostly for either more damage or armor, something very prominent that Mortal Kombat X had across the board. There are small details as to what strings work into his super kick and which ones don't, which is why the combos that you can see here don't look fully identical to the MK9 stuff I showed earlier. Certain attacks can't be cancelled the same way or don't combo like they used to, making this version of Rain, in a strange way, feel like a pretty new character. Thanks to Run and Neutral Jump Punch, the list goes on really. The only thing is his lightning does not juggle anywhere near like it used to. You use it to start combos or you don't use it at all. Gameplay wise, Weather Ball cannot be controlled and it acts as a simple timed stun. We can still combo from it, but we don't have the freedom that we used to. Another factor is that Super Kick is a simple special here, and it can't be cancelled. It is a means to launch, and nothing more. For an NPC character, he's honestly really well made, and with a few touch-ups to some of his buttons, could have been released as a standalone DLC, and I'd have been none the wiser, besides the obvious MK9 buttons anyway. There honestly isn't much else to go over here. As he was never meant to be played, he doesn't have things like X-rays or fatalities, just a regular moveset from a past game that is impressively ported over for story purposes. On top of the fact he looks fantastic visually. It's a shame he never made the final cut. I think this is my favourite costume he's ever had. There are a couple of honourable mentions I want to get through before the very end of this video, the first being Rain's Super Kick as an equipable Shang Tsung ability in MK11. I would much rather Rain be playable in MK11 by himself, but for now, this is a cool little Easter egg, and it is nice to see Ninja Rain in MK11 graphics. Finally, and this is quite a curveball, I do admit, a group of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 community members came together and over the course of years started working on what they would imagine a next patch, a next revision to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. What would it look like? What would it play like? What if we could take some of the classic characters that didn't quite make it into base arcade Ultimate MK3 and place them into the game in all of their original glory? Well, that brings me on to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 Plus. I want to shout out to Drusus and the Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 community for working with other community members to create what is known as Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 Plus, which is a community version of Ultimate MK3 that adds new content. It's currently been played at a few North American events and has been received very well. One of the big things about this version of the game is new characters within the UMK3 engine. One of them is Rain, completely constructed from the ground up within arcade UMK3 in all of his glory. He plays exactly like MK Trilogy Rain, only with some balance adjustments. No more Roundhouse Infinite, as once you hit a certain damage threshold, Roundhouse will no longer juggle. He has the works. One classic fatality and one completely brand new fatality to replace his not so amazing original one. a brutality which is a new addition to Plus, and feels identical to what everybody remembers about the character, only in the arcade version, which makes him feel the most responsive of any of the classic iterations of this character. Now, I'll admit, this video was a lot longer than I thought it would be. I wanted to try something new, something that celebrates specific fighters from the lore that people hold in high esteem and feel incredibly nostalgic over, myself included. Rain felt like the perfect first entry to this series, I'll call it for now, and hopefully you all enjoyed this little history lesson on one of the biggest fan favourites Mortal Kombat has ever seen. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Rain wins.
As always, thank you very much for watching this video, and I want to remind everybody that I have an official Patreon page open and ready to support if you want to take the YouTube support just that little bit further. Thank you so much to everyone that has backed me so far. The content is not going to stop here, and I'll see you all next time.